I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today I'm joined by Mr. Jason Lange. Jason is a men's embodiment coach, group facilitator, and evolutionary guide. He helps men drop in and wake up to deeper clarity in their lives' purposes and relationships. He believes every man should be in a men's group for the growth and support opportunities they provide. Jason is a certified No More Mr. Nice Guy coach and has trained and studied with leaders such as John Wineland, Dr. Robert Glover, John Peroshi, Trip Lanier, and Ken Wilbur. So I would like to give a huge welcome to Jason. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
So if you could just tell me a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I am you call it a men's coach, men guide, whatever you might want to, however you might want to phrase that, but I support men in leading the best lives they can lead in terms of their relationships, their purpose, their health, and in particular, I'm very passionate about getting men connected to other men. We're living in a time where loneliness and isolation are increasingly a big deal, particularly for men. Suicide rates are through the roof, addiction rates are through the roof. More and more men every year report not even having any close friends. And in the work I do, a big part of what I do is get men linked up to each other in these things called men's groups, which are little groups of men that meet regularly to talk about life and to hopefully shape it in a direction that they want to be moving.
So could you explain a little bit more about what a men's group is and why it's so important?
Yeah, so a men's group, there's lots of different types of men's groups, but in essence, what I often say is the purpose of a men's group is guys get together and put their attention on each other to talk about life and actually go below the surface in terms of, hey, what's going well in life right now? What's not going well in life right now? Where are you in pain? Where are you struggling? What's in the way? Where are you in integrity in your life? Where are you out of integrity in life? Where do you want to be headed? Literally, where are you going in your life? Questions that are really important for us guys. And a good group does a couple of things. It helps us men slow down and get more embodied, as I say, which means so many of us guys just walk around totally stuck up in our heads and thought, ruminating, overthinking things, and we're completely disconnected from our bodies and our hearts, our emotions. A good men's group will slow you down and get you more connected to yourself. So you quite honestly have a deeper grounding and sense of here I am and here's what I'm feeling. And from there, it becomes a lot easier to decide, well, and where do I want to go? What am I here to do? And as men in particular, we grow through challenge and feedback. And if we're not in a group with other men who are giving us feedback about how we're showing up in our lives, it's much harder to grow and become the men, the leaders, the partners, the bosses, whatever that might be we want in the world. And the other big thing is it's a lot harder to do this stuff alone. So many of us men are, through our culture, taught that being a tough man means never asking for help, never showing vulnerability, never showing any kind of weakness. And the truth is, that's an impossible way to live. And it's a big part of why so many men end up at the bottom of an alcohol bottle or addicted to weed or suicidal in a sense, because they try to hold that, we try to hold everything inside when that's just not possible. We need support from other men as well as accountability and feedback. So a good men's group, it's basically like finding your team. You know, most of us can probably relate to the difference between, working out alone. Okay, I'm going to push myself. I'm going to do this thing. We can do it. And then you work out with a buddy. And guess what? Most people work out harder. They run a little harder. They lift a little stronger. They push themselves more. And that happens in a good group. Men will push themselves more towards living a life of boldness and challenge that they want to live, and that they're inevitably going to hit some speed blocks, speed bumps along the way and hit some adversity. And that's where then your crew of men can help support you through that. So, really, a men's group is a way to make the most of your life and make sure you're living it in a way that on your deathbed, you look back and you think, yeah, I did that. I'm stoked. I really went for it. I didn't play it safe in my life. I tried things, I failed things, but I really lived. And a good group is going to help you do that in all kinds of ways.
Can you explain what the man box is?
Yes. So the man box is this kind of cultural construct we've made up of what makes a man. And so you can quite literally think of it as a box. As long as you check the all these attributes, this list item, check the boxes on it, you belong in the box. If you don't check the boxes, you don't belong in the box. So the man box is stuff like don't show weakness, don't be vulnerable, men don't cry, have sex with as many people as you can. These are all expectations that men are expected to conform to. And if you don't, you're called all kinds of names and considered not a man. And there's some fascinating research behind this, right? That, and it's interesting, they polled both men and women around this, where if you ask a bunch of human beings, hey, what marks the transition from a girl to becoming a woman? Both men and women point to physical attributes, right? She has her menstrual cycle, her body has developed. She's a woman now because her biology developed and changed. The same does not hold true for men. You ask the same men and women, hey, what marks the transition of a boy into a man? It's not based on their physiology, it's based on their behavior and how they're showing up in their community, their culture, their life. Meaning there's these expectations of, well, a real man does this, another man, a boy does this. And so the man box is just this loose constellation of all those different things. They vary a bit from culture to culture, but there are definitely some similarities, right? That toughness is better than weakness, emotions are more girly. You should, again, like I said, have sex with anyone that will have sex with you. There's all of these things that get pushed onto us as men. You're only as valuable as what you do, how much money you make. And if you're not making a lot of money, you're not worth anything as a man. There's all of these different things floating through the culture that create these pressures for men to conform to a certain way of being that is often extremely detrimental for each individual man's health and well-being.
The checkbox method is so relatable to me. When you were mentioning what you have to check off, I was sitting here and I thought, yeah, that's usually how we're perceived as. It's common. And I always talk about it on my podcast, and I've talked with it with other guests too. Men tend to, if they're dealing with something mentally, if they're dealing with something personally, they don't open up and talk about it because it kind of shows weakness and it shows that they are not a man. They keep it bottled up because they want to kind of perceive this image of um tough, nothing affects me, nothing gets me down. And with some men, that's true. No, nothing really gets to them, but 9 times out of 10, you'll meet someone that is dealing with some personal stuff that does affect them mentally and they do break down. So I 100% agree that we kind of have this image that we like to provide and maintain, but every once in a while, it's okay to break that persona and actually show. Because I think if you're a real man, you show that you're not 100% tough. I think it's okay to show emotions. It's okay to show that you're not 100% strong. And I think it's just common, which I think nowadays it's a little bit more, I would say more normalized, but yet again, I kind of not really, but yeah, growing up it was different. It was just
Yeah, it is changing. That's the good news. And, there's still some pushback sometimes. We're seeing a particular pushback culturally right now to kind of more traditional masculine values. And I mean, the reality is it's pretty brutal. Like they've done research again on men who identify strongly with traditional masculine values, a lot of which are kind of certain variants of stoicism and this, don't show feeling, override with your head. Those men are far more likely to commit suicide. Try to hold the pain in, eventually you just want to shut off. That's what happens for men. And instead, what I often say is um, a lot of times the pushback against vulnerability comes from fear. Oh, and I say to guys, tell me who's more afraid, the man who is terrified to feel grief or fear or anger or any one of the many normal human emotions we have, vulnerability being another one, or the man who can step right into it and doesn't collapse into shame and also doesn't have to posture with some kind of fake machismo armor. He's just right there, totally present with whatever's true in his life. And turns out that's the more courageous man. Oftentimes the guys who deride emotionality are just afraid. They're just afraid to feel because they feel if I do that, then I become less of, I won't be considered a man. I'll be ostracized by my community, whatever that might be. And again, here in the States where I live, right, we're fed the myth of the Marlboro man, the lone wolf, whatever you want to call it, this kind of tough, rugged guy, doesn't need help from anyone, tough as nails, right? And the truth is, those guys are often drinking themselves to death. They die early. And even in nature, the so romanticized lone wolf is the one that was kicked out of the pack. And guess what? They die faster. We are relational, communal creatures. And men who learn to make that pivot to men can be my greatest allies, relationships can be my allies, they make it longer because I don't care how tough you think you are as a man. Every single man and human being, at some point, your body will fail you and you won't be able to just push through with toughness. That could be sickness, illness, or the inevitable thing for all of us, old age. And in that moment, you are going to fall back to what kind of relationships do I have in my life? Can I ask for help? Are there people that want to help me? And that's kind of the vanguard. This new wave of men's work and masculinity is really aiming for, which is, hey, to ask for help doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you more efficient and able to do more in life. So many guys I work with, I've done this too, so I'll out myself. Stubborn as hell, don't want to ask for help, will waste hours, days, weeks, months sometimes trying to figure something out when we could just turn to someone and say, hey, I need some help. And then that person helps us. And turns out we can solve that problem so much faster. So to me, that is not a limitation, that is an asset. We want to be able to ask for help so we can grow faster and do more of the things we want to do in our lives.
since you started the men's group, have you seen more? men open up now than compared to maybe 10 years ago?
100%. It's changing fast. When I got into men's work and men's groups, I was in my mid 20s. It was the mid 2000s. And most places around the country, if you said something like a men's group, people would either assume you're meaning like an AA recovery group or some kind of church group, Bible study group. And they both have a place and value in the world, but the type of men's work we're pointing to does go a little deeper in terms of this growth and development and support. And it has changed so much in the last 10 years. There's so much more men's work because men are suffering, and we need tools to be able to support ourselves to become, effective human beings in the world. And for a lot of men, we want to be showing up in our families, communities, relationships better, but we don't know how. And that question has driven a lot of men, particularly into the world like this of podcasting and learning and audiobooks of, hey, how do I become a more functional man in this society? So there's a tidal wave right now and very needed because simultaneously, post-COVID, AI chatbots, social media, so many things have been moving us to more and more isolation where there's probably never been a time more in history that you could basically live a completely solitary life and never have to talk to anyone as a man, frictionless. I'm just going to order all my food online, get it all shipped by Amazon. I know guys that work from home and they can go days without making human contact with other people. So there's all this pressure that's trying to isolate us more and more and more that I think men's work and men's groups is a big antidote for.
What are some common challenges men face these days?
Yeah, a lot of men don't know how we're supposed to be. So many of us men, our parents or older generations, were raised with the old scripts of basically to be a successful man, as long as you were providing and provisioning for your family, meaning you made money, that was enough. And you were considered a good father or a good husband. Uh, that's just done with. Those days are over. The world is far more complex and nuanced now, where men are expected to be a lot more. And this is where men get frustrated or feel left behind because we just haven't been taught the tools for what it means to be a healthy, integrated man these days. That, yes, can be a badass and powerful and set boundaries and knows what we want, but simultaneously has access to our feelings, our heart, can be relational, cares about other people, and that it's not an either or thing, right? It's not we either have heart or balls. We can have both. We can be powerful men who are sensitive and, quite frankly, are more effective in the world. And without those roadmaps or modeling of what that kind of manhood looks like, let's say, we fall prey to some of the more simplified versions that are being put out right now. They're like, hey, just rewind the clock to when women were property and men could do whatever they wanted. And that doesn't work anymore. You're not going to get into a thriving long-term relationship like that. Um, and then we match that with more and more men just spend less and less time around other mature men. There's almost no rites of passage in our culture anymore. So boys are just thrust into the world without having any guidance or mentorship. So it can become a big challenge. And again, where men's group and men's work comes into play is we get connected to other more mature men who can guide us deeper into ourselves and help us get clear and model for us what it means to be a healthy man that is present in his relationship, present as a father, not killing himself, overworking, or addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever that might be, and knows how to share and ask for help when he needs it, and has enough resiliency to keep moving towards the things he wants. So it's that lack of a clear guided pathway that has been really hard for a lot of men who are like, okay, I've been taught that being the Cro-Magnon kind of caveman macho jerk isn't enough. Then a lot of guys swing to the kind of sensitive, nice guy, but then they have no capacity to set boundaries. People are constantly taking advantage of them. They don't get the things they want and they feel frustrated. And so those two suck, to be frank. And this new kind of emerging masculinity of, hey, you don't have to just live inside the box, right? You can be whatever you want as a man. And you got to learn to take care of yourself. And as I tell most guys I work with right now, um, you have to take responsibility for your pain. Whatever happened to you as a kid, in your childhood, in your environment, nobody can get you out of that but you. And the moment you're willing to take responsibility for that and stop pointing the finger out there, you can really transform into a really powerful person that can lead other men in particular forward into this new world.
Can you explain what is healthy masculine?
Yeah, so healthy masculine is the part of all of us, whether we're in a male body, female body, or anywhere in between, that is directional, that kind of takes the big picture and moves towards something that creates more goodness, truth, and beauty in the world. And what this really means is we have to be present in our bodies, connected, literally connected to our bodies, something that is so challenging for us men. And when we're connected into our bodies, we become connected to our hearts. All emotions start as physical sensations inside of ourselves. So if we're not in our bodies, it's hard to be in our hearts. And if we're not in our hearts, it's very challenging to connect to other people. Third, so we have being grounded in our bodies, open and sensitive in our hearts, is we have to have choice and the capacity to focus and put our attention on the things we want. Meaning, instead of being at the behest of all the things that are pulling our attention in life, we can direct our attention on what we want and hold it there. And these kind of three pillars of being in our body, in our hearts, and deepening our awareness is the foundational elements to this kind of new healthy masculinity that isn't closed down, that isn't totally armored up, that isn't stuck in our heads, but has the capacity to kind of move in between them. And we rarely have this modeled for us, again, as men. Most men are completely, utterly not present in the moment, distracted by their stresses or tensions or thoughts. If they're in a conversation, they're trying to think of the right thing to say rather than actually being present with the person. So, healthy masculinity is radically present right here and now. And it's relaxed, it's not stressed out, it's not tough and postured, but it's also not a pushover, collapsed. It's right here. We often use the image of bamboo, an incredible, incredible wood that's both really strong but quite flexible. And those two things feed into each other. So healthy masculinity is grounded, still, and relaxed, and has enough openness to be connected to themselves, to other people, and the environment around them. And it's not domineering. Domination, hey, this is the way things are going to happen, is kind of the old school masculine, which people revert to when they don't have the capacity to actually relate to another human being. So healthy masculinity is also empowering of others rather than focusing on power over. It's about distributing power to. How me being in my power as a man actually empowers you to get more of what you want in your life. And that's radically different from previous generations.
Can you explain a little bit about what shadow work is and how it can help improve a man's life?
Yeah, so shadow work is the often challenging process of bringing into our consciousness the unconscious patterns that govern our behavior. So the parts of ourselves that are often running the show that we don't even realize. So anytime we do things as a human being and we don't know why, we might even be conscious of, I don't know why I keep doing this in my relationship or in my life or whatever that. I don't want to be doing it, but yet here I am. There's often shadow behind it, meaning there's some unconscious process that's trying to protect us from something, often based on early childhood experiences that got buried down deep. Might be a fear, for one, that our behavior then flows from. So, shadow work is the process of bringing that into the light so we have more choice as to how to respond. For most men, shadow work involves processing and metabolizing old emotional wounding. So something happened to us when we were young, our body didn't know how to deal with it, and we'll construct all kinds of unconscious mechanisms to try to not have to feel that again. And lo and behold, why it's important is when shadow is running the show, we are not. So it's ultimately less empowering for us when we're being run by behaviors and habits that we're not consciously choosing anymore. This stuff shows up huge in relationships, in particular, intimate relationships, right? Ways I show up with my partner or withhold or deny or defend are often almost always driven by shadow. So, shadow work is the process when I say taking responsibility for our pain, particularly for us as men, to get into the deep wounding we all carry inside of us and shine the light on it and say, oh, okay, this is why I get so pissed off and triggered when someone speaks over me or whatever that might be, right? There's so many examples of this stuff. And then we learn to take charge of our triggers and charge, right? So rather than being highly reactive men in the world, we become highly responsive men in the world, meaning we consciously respond to the moment rather than getting triggered into unconscious action. Shadow work is an art form as much as anything else, but again, it's the process of, in some sense, another, the metaphor we often use here is learning what's the water I swim in, right? If you imagine the fish that's been in the bowl its whole life, and you're like, how's the water? And he's like, what are you talking about? And then eventually you take the fish out of the water and you're like, dude, can you tell you've been in that your whole life? And you're like, oh, now I see it, right? We have so many metaphors and analogies for this in our culture. My generation in particular, it was the Matrix, right? Wake up from the Matrix. You're immersed in this whole world you're not even conscious of. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Shadow work is the process of making the unseen seen.
Where, what does the feminine crave from the masculine?
Deep presence more than anything else. So, not our capacity to fix things, not how rock solid our abs are, not how big our bank account is, but do we have the capacity to become radically present in the moment and actually with, be with her heart, her emotions, her body, right here and now. My attention isn't on my thoughts, on my head. It's not what I'm going to do tomorrow. It's not what I have to say to her to get her to feel something. I am right here, right now with you. That deep presence is completely nourishing to the feminine. And what they're often craving from men is just stop trying to fix me or get me not to feel something and just be here with me. Be present with me. Be solid. Be grounded. Be relaxed. When you're solid, grounded, and relaxed, as a man holding the masculine, the feminine can relax and open, whether that's in a woman or in another man. We all have masculine and feminine energies inside of us, whatever you want to call them. But the masculine part of us is that still, grounded, unchanging part that is radically present with whatever is here right now. Most men have no idea how to do that. They literally can't stop moving their bodies or can't stop thinking. And that can be felt by other people when we're with them. Everybody can probably think of examples of men, but really women too can do this, of people who just being in their presence relaxes us and puts us at ease. That is a man's capacity to become radically present, where his nervous system down regulates the nervous system of whoever's around him, including his feminine partner.
For people that want to learn more about men's work, is men's groups everywhere? And where, or how can someone start a men's group to where they can help their community and have other men join the community, what's some advice you have for people that want to start one?
Yeah, there's more and more men's groups all around the world. You can go on meetup.com, Eventbrite, Google men's groups near me. If you have a therapist, ask your therapist if they know of any. The stuff is spreading and it's spreading fast. So, most likely, you can find something geographically located near you. If you're not near a bigger city or a dense area, the great news is because of things like this, you can do virtual groups over Zoom, which, are different than meeting up with men in person, but still quite impactful. It's quite amazing what can happen even just in a virtual room. So, you can just start doing some Googling to try to find a group around you. Um, I have lots of resources available for men that want to start their own groups. I have toolkits that basically help men, like, hey, here you go. Here's everything you need step by step to start a local group or a virtual group with men you want to serve in your community. I have men's groups online that I run for men as well. So you can certainly come to me, but I'm not the only one. I'm just particularly passionate about every man I've ever supported getting into a men's group. Their life has improved. It gets better. It gets better with the support. The relationships get better. They make more money. Their health gets better. All the metrics go up over time. So if you're interested, you can start Googling some local things, or you can definitely chase me down and I can point you into some good directions as well.
Well, Jason, I appreciate you so much for joining me today and telling me more about this. I think it's really important for men to say it, to be like, it's okay to show emotions. It's okay to be heard, that you can still have the masculinity in yourself, but it's okay to show emotions from time to time. It's okay to, have breaking points, but because I think that kind of shows that you're a real man. Or at least in my eyes, some people might be different than me, but I've broken down so many times about stuff, and no one really has told me that's not really what a man does. Mainly because I didn't really talk to anybody, but it was more of a just kind of like a self, I guess what I could tell. I told myself that, but I appreciate you so much for telling me a lot about this. For people that want to follow more about you and learn more about men's group and just follow your journey, feel free to promote everything, social media, websites, whatever you got going on. Just feel free to let people know where they all can find you at.
Yeah, easiest place to keep up with me is on my website at evolutionary.men. I've got blogs on there, podcasts on there, all kinds of different programs, retreats, men's groups of any variety. There's also a contact form on there. If you're like, hey, I need help finding a group or starting a group, just reach out. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'm on most of the socials, YouTube and Instagram and in the TikToks. So you can find me on there if you kind of want more bite-sized content, so to speak. What really best place, easiest place is just have it head over to evolutionary.men.
Well, Jason, thank you again so much for joining me today. And as always, what I do with all my guests, I put off his links in the description below. I'll put his social media accounts, his website, and everything in the description box, so it's all in one place. Um, Feel free to follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Pandora, YouTube. It's basically everywhere you get podcasts. You can follow me on social media. Instagram and TikTok, it's Lethal Venom Podcast, Facebook and YouTube, and I now have a Twitter X account as well on Facebook X and YouTube is Noah's Podcast. Um, Thank you, Jason, so much for coming on today, and thank you for sharing more about your cause. I think is great.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Noah. It was a pleasure.
Well, let's hope everyone enjoyed this episode. If you would like to check more stuff out, please feel free to follow me everywhere and keep updates about when new episodes are released. And as always, I'll see you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.